Hello! If you saw my recent community post, I did skip a video last week, and I am kind of taking a break. I'm still technically on that break. I thought today, because I am still feeling a bit tired, that I would do some colouring in. Colouring is such a great way to put some colour down on paper but not have to think about making an actual artwork. I haven't done a lot of colouring lately and I've missed it, so I thought today would be a perfect opportunity to take a look at this colouring book, which is actually produced by another YouTube artist, Weblight Dreams. I purchased it off Amazon. I was actually really surprised it was on the Australian Amazon and it was a really reasonable price, so I figured that I would help support her because I know she's put a lot of work into this book. And so I'm going to do just a very brief flip through and then I'll pick 1 or 2 pages to colour from it. So let's get into it. It's a standard A4 size paperback book. There are some preview images on the back and it looks like there are 24 pictures in total. Flipping through and the paper feels like a standard white smooth paper, kind of like printer paper, but maybe just a bit thicker. And apologies if I flip through a few of the pictures quite quickly. I did actually speed this up because I just blathered on for so long and it was taking ages, so I just had to cut out all of my talking and I'm doing a voiceover. But what I really like about this book is that the pictures are only on one side and the back side of the picture is blank, so you can use alcohol markers and let that bleed through all you want without ruining a picture on the reverse side. I hate that about colouring books. It really does limit your use of markers, but this one, I went to town in it, so I'm very happy about that. You could also use coloured pencils, water-based markers, fine liners, any kind of pen really. I would say that watercolour paint is probably not going to work on this. I didn't actually try it, but I can just feel that that paper is going to warp so badly. So pens and pencils it is. Another nice little touch is having all of the pictures in little thumbnails at the back so you can test out colour combinations. There's lots of blank pages for testing swatches, and my copy is actually manufactured by Amazon Australia. So I decided to go with this picture first up. I don't know, it caught my eye. And I've got that set of Kmart alcohol markers out because any excuse to use those. The brush nibs on them are amazing. I couldn't decide which shade to colour her skin, but because she's a centaur, I figured that a horsey colour would be nice, so I'm going for a mid-brown for the most part, and then I did use some of the darker and lighter tones as I went along. I should mention that I've stuck some thick paper underneath this drawing so that the markers can bleed through onto that and not onto the picture underneath, because they really did bleed through on this paper. But otherwise the markers worked really well because the paper kind of absorbed them a little bit, so it got rid of a lot of streaking very quickly once the markers had dried, and with a bit of layering it looked really good. So I'm keeping most of her face really light because that's where the light is hitting, at least in my imagination, and I'm going in with a much lighter pen for the highlighted areas of her skin. I did have to go over all the other pen as well because you could kind of see it blending together and it was blurring a bit. So that is the nature of alcohol markers, I guess. I'm really not that experienced with them, so I was kind of making it up a little bit as I went along, but that's situation normal for me anyway. Now I'm going in with darker shades to get some shadow areas going and also to colour in the horsey bits of her. Really these days I'm not that much into manga or anime. It's not something I was ever that keen on, to be quite honest with you, but I have to say I had a lot of fun with these pictures. I think because I don't really often colour cartoon style figures, doing something completely different just really woke up my creativity again, and it was nice to think about how I might shade a person, colour her hair in, and also to think about colour and tone combinations. I'm actually going with quite a limited palette here, and I decided to keep it fairly realistic in the colours, so I pretty much just used the skin tone set plus a black as well. I chose some other colours for the flowers later on, and also a gold pen for some shiny metallic accents. I've been getting more interested in markers lately. I've never really used them all that much, probably because I don't really have a great deal of them. All the ones I have are kind of cheap or they have bullet nibs and they're just not as nice to use as brush nib markers. I have some Copic sketch markers as well, but they're just so stupidly expensive, I really can't justify buying more of them, so I think I might end up buying a set of those Ohuhu markers or something like that eventually, just so I can have a full set that's actually in a zipper case, because the ones I have are all loose and are in a container which is really difficult to move around. And what I'm liking about markers is that it's a pretty quick medium. You can get the pens down very quickly, cover a lot of area, especially if you use the chisel nib, and it just is a lot faster than, say, coloured pencils, which take twice as long or even longer, as we will see in my next picture, because I did actually do 2 in this video. And as I said before, it's a rare opportunity to use markers in a colouring book, because almost all of the other ones that I have are double-sided, and so you're just going to destroy half of the book using markers and render half of the pictures uncolorable, which just is kind of sad, and I can't handle that. But having a blank side on the back is just fantastic. I really like this book. The pictures in it are nicely drawn. I can tell that the artist has spent a lot of time perfecting the line art for these. I think she did it all digitally at the end, and that must have just taken so long to get all of these pictures finished, so I do give her credits for putting an entire colouring book together. It's something that I think about doing every so often, but I'm just not too sure I can quite commit to that level at the moment. I'm quite happy to colour in other people's pictures. So for her little outfit, I decided to go with purple and added in some more brown for the quiver so that it matched with the bow. And then I went in with some gold pen. Originally I used this rollerball one. It just wasn't working for me. It wasn't standing out at all. So I went for a juicier gold paint marker, and this looked really great on the brown. So I used this to add a lot of gold accents all over it. And then I also coloured in those border bits as well. I decided on this one to not colour the background. Maybe I'll add something later on, but I felt like the figure stood out nicely on the white, especially once I've added in those gold border parts. You can probably tell I spent quite a lot of time colouring this, although not as much as the second picture, which we will see in a little while. But I just really needed to do something like this. I've been pretty exhausted because I haven't had a break in I don't even know how long. If you're a regular viewer of my channel, you'll know that my father fell and broke his hip not too long ago, and it's been a slow recovery for him. He is getting a lot better now, but it was a big shock for everyone, and I pretty much had to just drop everything and move out to his place for a few weeks so I could take care of him once he'd come out of the hospital. And it was right around that time that I'd actually planned to have a break, but then I figured that I would take work with me because it gave me something to do and kept me kind of sane making videos. So I pretty much just worked through and didn't take that break that I was intending to. And then we came home and I just kept going with videos. I've been in a good routine, I'm getting a lot of views, and it's just really hard to let that slide. So I wanted to keep going as long as I could. But last week or so, I just hit that point where I had to take a break. Critical mass had been reached, as had my exhaustion, and so I just pretty much just dropped everything and actually forced myself to take a proper break away from editing or filming or even doing any kind of art. I haven't done much art in the last week or two, which is unusual for me, but it's been so good just taking that time off. And so I thought I would come back with a bit of colouring. Really glad I did. This one was so much fun and I love how it turned out. I mean, who doesn't love shiny gold metallic pen? Here's the final picture. I did think about doing a background, but on second thoughts I think I'm just going to leave it as it is so I don't mess it up, because I'm quite happy with how it's turned out at the moment. Shiny metallics. And I'll take out my page and you can see how much that has bled through. Look at that on the back. It's almost a full image there too. So I did end up using 2 pieces of paper because I was a bit afraid it was going to leak through this, and you can see it has, although it doesn't seem to have gone onto this page, but better to be safe than sorry. So that's one page done. I might do another with coloured pencils. I definitely have to colour a dragon. I thought I'd try out some coloured pencils in the book to see how they'd go, and I dug out my Prismacolors, which I have not used in so long. I'd forgotten how lovely they are. They are such a beautiful waxy, creamy texture, and the colours are really bright and glorious. The only reason I don't use them more often is because they are an absolute nightmare to sharpen. I mean, they break at the drop of a hat, and it is just rage-inducing. But I threw caution to the wind and used them again in this drawing, and my goodness, this got totally out of hand. I spent so much more time than I was intending to, because I really got into a zone, and I was thinking of how beautiful crystals can be when all of the colours are just reflecting off the facets. So I thought it would be really fun just to come up with a whole combination and add in those different colours to most of the crystals so that you could see the kind of shining off each other. And this worked out astoundingly well. I'm so happy with this particular colouring image. I think I might actually have to draw something like this and create an original image myself, because I just really love the colour combination with how these crystals turned out. Prismacolors have such pretty pinks, purples, blues and teals. They're just some of my absolute favourites, and a lot of other sets don't really have that range, probably because a lot of these aren't exactly light fast, but doesn't really matter for a book. So the crystals actually ended up being the focal point of this picture, and what I did once I'd coloured them all was go over with an oil-based paint pen and add over the top of the crystals some white lines and highlights, which really made them look like they were shiny, and I love how the effect turned out. I'm not too sure how well that paint pen is going to stick to those very waxy coloured pencils, but it has to be better than acrylic paint or a white gel pen, which are water-based and won't stick at all. At least an oil-based one has more chance of clinging to it. So I coloured in all of the crystals first. The dragon itself is a lot more muted, and so is the background, because I did a full background on this using brush marker pens again, because it is just so much faster. And you can see here how that white paint pen is really making the crystals pop. But my goodness, this picture took a long time, but I was really in a zone and I haven't felt that for a while, so it was nice to just let go and let the colours just flow over the page. This was so beneficial for me, and I do feel a lot more energized for it. So hopefully I can get back into my schedule and continue making more videos. It's something I love to do, but breaks are also really important to prevent burnout. Everyone needs a bit of self-care now and then. And I'm calling it done. This took so long to do, but I had a really good time with it, and I love how the crystals turned out. The dragon's kind of faded into the background, but I don't mind it actually. It's like it's camouflaging in with its surroundings, and then the focal point are the crystals. So it turned out okay. It's not what I planned at all, but I really do like how this came out, and you should see the back of it. Look at that ink going through just as well. I had a double layer of paper underneath. And here is the other one that I did. You can see I have actually done a little bit of swatching in the back of the book where you're supposed to do that. So all in all, I had a really great time colouring in here. It was relaxing, I feel a little more inspired, and it was just a nice way to use some of my pens and use some different colour combinations. I do love how this one turned out. I think it's really cool. The book is really fun to use, and I will definitely colour more pictures in here, possibly in my own time, but I just really enjoyed this one. It was so relaxing and I recommend it. The paper isn't the most amazing in the world, but it actually held up really well to markers and coloured pencils. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button, and I'll be back again really soon for another video, and we'll see what other arty shenanigans I can get up to. I'll swatch you later. Bye!